In the northern end of Africa's Great Rift Valley lies an area unlike anywhere on Earth. This is the Danakil Desert in Ethiopia, perhaps the most inhospitable place known to man. Volcanoes and earthquakes continually rip the ground apart, spewing lava and noxious gases. And this is officially the hottest place on the surface of the planet. The idea that anyone would actually live here seems absurd. And yet there are people living here, as they have for thousands of years. A legendary nomadic warrior tribe called the Afar. I'm setting off with a team of scientists on an incredible journey. We hope to discover how people survive in this most extreme environment, how their lives and even their bodies have been shaped by the land around them.
Look at you, you make it look completely effortless.
You need to be on good form in this environment just to carry on. If you're off, you will die. Nice and simple.
We want to get to understand a community where survival depends on working together.
I love this place. You just feel part of the family already.
They called me sister today.
We also want to delve beneath the surface of this extraordinary land to unlock its secrets. It's a journey that will take us into the fabric of the Earth, broken apart by earthquakes.
Oh! You are kidding me.
To think this happened overnight. This is the stuff of Hollywood.
And we'll go further still into the raging furnace of volcanoes that are still shaping this land.
Oh my goodness.
No wonder the Afar call this place the gateway to hell. We start our adventure in the Ethiopian highland town of Mekelle.
So what do you need to mount an expedition to what is reputedly the most inhospitable place on Earth? Well, our team consists of 25 scientists, adventurers and specialist camera teams. We're supported by over 50 Ethiopian drivers, fixers and guides, and we've got, as you can see, about 2,000 kilograms of kit. From here, we drive about 120 kilometers to the edge of an area called the Danakil Depression. From there, we have to go on foot with camels to a small place called Dalol, but it's famous for being the hottest place on Earth. Right, I think I'm ready.
To get to the Danakil Depression, we must first journey through the Ethiopian highlands. Our last contact with civilization, cooler temperatures and greenery for the next 3 weeks. Ahead of us lies an adventure that will take us to the world's oldest salt mines, then onto a village in the very heart of the hottest place on Earth. We're also aiming to be the first to conquer the world's newest earthquake fissure, as well as its oldest active lava lake. But we're not just sightseeing. This is an in-depth exploration of this extraordinary land and its amazing people.
What I want to do is find out what it is that make the Afar such great survivors in an area where most people would just perish.
The Afar can only live in this hostile environment because of their livestock. So, what animals do they keep? How do they keep them? And while I'm here, is there anything I can do to help?
Meanwhile, Earth scientist Dougal will be looking for evidence to support his theory that the land the Afar live on is in the process of disintegrating. And the only way to do that is to get down and dirty in the rumbling bowels of the Earth.
This part of Africa is literally tearing itself apart. We've got steaming fissures, active volcanoes, and bubbling lava lakes. I want to go face to face with those volcanoes using the latest 3D technology.
After 8 hours of bumpy roads, we've finally reached the bottom of the highlands and our first overnight camp.
What a journey. What a journey.
Well, I think we can probably say we're officially in the middle of nowhere. It's a long old haul, so yeah, we've earned our water and hopefully some dinner.
It's too hot for tents, so we'll sleep under the stars. It does mean we'll have to look out for unwelcome visitors, but luckily we have Steve on guard duty.
We're just having a quick scan around for scorpions. There's a peculiar thing about them is that they fluoresce under UV light, so we've got a UV light source here. Oh, here we go. There we go.
Oh, yes.
See how it shines? Absolutely apple green. There's no mistaking that. The thing with scorpions is that you'll be stung before you know it's there.
There are around 17 species of scorpion in this part of the world. The dry, rocky conditions make an ideal habitat.
Yeah, sorry guys, we have found some scorpions just outside camp, so just letting everybody be aware that they are knocking about. It's not going to kill you, it's just going to hurt like fury, so no sandals, if you would.
We settle in for the night, and it's really starting to feel like the expedition is underway.
We're here now, and actually, sleeping under the stars, that's a bargain. You've got to love that, haven't you? Big full old moon. Yeah, very happy now.
Tomorrow's the start, really, of our first big physical test here in this very remote and extremely hot part of Ethiopia. I think it gets hotter as the journey goes on. We're kind of being let down gently into the heat, but it's going to be a tough day, I suspect, but a good one.
We wake to a scene that has remained almost unchanged for 2,000 years. This is the starting point for great caravans of camels on their way to the Danakil salt mines in the heart of the Danakil desert, where our scientists' mission will begin in earnest. Though first, we have to get there. It is accessible the long way round in a 4x4, but we want to experience that journey as the locals do it, with a camel train.
Well, from now, these vehicles aren't going to be any good to us because the route we're taking can only be done on foot and by camel. So these camels are all loaded up with everything that we need for the next 3 days.
For Steve, this is an opportunity to study the camel in action. He's picked one out, and for some reason known only to him, he's called it Jeff.
All right, Jeff, it's going to be fine.
And what Jeff doesn't know is that he and his mates are the key to the Afar's survival.
You might be thinking that Jeff's coping very well with the heat, but then again, so am I. But the key difference between me and him, yeah, talking about you, lad, is that I have to drink about 1 litre of water every hour. Whereas Jeff, despite his complaining, doesn't have to drink anything for the next 7 days despite this heat. They don't store water. He hasn't got water in that hump. That's purely a fat reserve. He's got a little bit in his guts, but the key thing that he does is that he doesn't lose what he's got. He uses his long limbs and his long neck as radiators to get rid of heat without losing water. He hardly sweats at all. He sucks every drop of moisture out of his food, and he allows his core body temperature to rise up to 6 degrees higher than normal, which would kill a human.
It's all very well for camels to set off without water, but we're going too, and that means we have to take a vast quantity of water with us. It really will make the difference between us surviving this trip or not. So, Expedition Dr. Mukul is determined to make sure we all get the message.
Sifa's our guide. He's going to tell us what we've got on today.
For the next days, we'll be walking on the salt caravan route. This route is always really difficult. There are many people who die from the weather, I mean, from the heat.
This is serious stuff. And just from the car yesterday, a lot of us weren't as good with the water as we could have been. I certainly had a dehydration headache, and I know several others did. We've got to be better here, otherwise this will kill us. We're in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and it's going to get worse.
And the good news?
Yeah.
This is one of the great trade routes of the ancient world. Over the centuries, thousands will have set off from here, and I feel a real sense of privilege to be one of the few Westerners to get the chance to join them. But this part of Ethiopia can also be a dangerous place for outsiders. Just last year, a group of British tourists were kidnapped only a few kilometers from where we're walking. These high-sided canyons make perfect ambush territory for local bandits. So it's comforting to have Afar local militia to look after us, with the standard must-have accessory, the AK-47. But while we keep moving quickly and rather nervously through the canyons, geologist Dougal can't resist taking his time to get a proper look at the rocks.
We've now entered this world which I'm really excited about, because we're going down canyons where either side of the canyons I've got just geology exposed 100%.
Whatever the dangers and the hardships, for Dougal, this is what the trip is all about.
Either side of the valley we've got these fantastic sedimentary rocks. And these rocks are sediments that were deposited in marine setting, so they would have essentially been horizontal as they were deposited, and you get a series of rocks over thousands, even millions of years deposited through time. But what we're seeing here is these rocks are now tilted. They've been tilted along massive cracks in the Earth's crust, which are essentially acting as big fault zones, and these things are tilting in, and that's something very important in this region.
And Dougal finds evidence that as the land here sinks, it's bringing us closer to the volcanic layer beneath the Earth's crust.
Here we have a crack in the Earth's crust, and here you can see a brown rock is coming up through that crack. Now this brown rock was molten rock before, magma, which is lava when it erupts at the surface and feeds volcanoes. And what we're seeing here is like a freeze-framed plumbing system of a volcano.
As our second day draws to a close, in the heat, it feels like we've covered a huge distance, whereas we've only done 18 kilometers, well short of our target. Day 3 and our first serious test begins. A 30-kilometer hike to the next campsite. And to add to the unrelenting sun and lack of water, we have a new element to overcome. The Gara, the wind of fire, which powers down from the baking sands of Arabia, turning this part of the desert into a vast, superheated wind tunnel.
Today we've got a really hard day because not only have we got to face the fire wind, which apparently is sort of similar to standing in front of a fan-assisted oven with it on full blast all day, but we've also got to make up all the time that we didn't do yesterday, so we've probably got 10 or 12 hours walking today.
If we can keep up an average speed of 3 kilometers per hour, we should reach camp before nightfall. Any one of us could manage that speed in normal conditions, but these conditions are far from normal. By early afternoon, the temperature has hit 46 degrees. Despite our best efforts, all the elements nature has thrown against us have slowed us more than we thought. As the sun goes down, we still have several kilometers to go, so we have no choice but to keep walking into the night to reach our overnight stop.
Well, we're walking through what can only be described as a sort of human-sized hairdryer, and this is the fire wind that we've all been talking about, but obviously it's at night time, so it's a bit cooler. And the reason why we haven't just stopped to camp is because this area is a little bit unsafe. There's no shelter, there's no water provisions, and also there's some rebels in the area.
All we can do is hope our guides know where they're going as we play Follow My Leader in the wind-blown dark. Until we finally make it to camp.
Oh, got all the grit in my face.
Right, we're here.
A full 15 hours after setting off.
I'm just really, really glad I phoned ahead for the penthouse suite. I'm going to look forward to that tonight, I tell you.
You know, all I can feel is this wind, and I have a sense of the fact that this place is a wide open space. Tomorrow when the sun comes up, I think we'll get a better idea of what we've got left.
We wake up in a place called Hamadella. Officially, it's a village. In fact, it's little more than a bleak military outpost just 15 kilometers from the border with neighboring Eritrea. After a decade of open warfare, they're now enjoying a period of peace. But no one's quite sure how long the fragile truce will last.
That's the border with Eritrea. So this is a very hot political area. There are police and army basically stationed here at all times. We were told very categorically, when you want to go for a wee in the night, don't go that way because you'll be shot.
We're now just 2 hours' walk from our first destination, the salt mines of Dalol. This is the point where we descend into the Danakil depression itself, to the hottest place on Earth. In the 60s, an American mining company set up a huge industrial operation here to mine potash for fertilizer. The venture lasted 2 years before the unrelenting desert heat forced them to close. But during that time, they recorded an annual temperature record that still stands, an average of 34.4 degrees centigrade, day and night. Unbelievably, where the machines failed, humans succeed. Part of Mukkul's mission is to look at how the locals cope with working in such extreme temperatures, so he's devised a little experiment. He's volunteered 2 guinea pigs, Steve and me, to try our hands at mining while he monitors our body heat from the inside.
I'm going to swallow some little radio transmitters that are temperature sensors to see what the temperature is inside us. The capsule is this thing, which is a little radio mic.
Little?
That's a horse.
That's a jelly bean.
So it's a radio transmitter?
It's a radio transmitter, and it will tell me what the temperature inside you is.
Do you want this back?
Kate, you need to bring your own back.
When we get to the mine, Mukkul hopes to persuade some local miners to swallow identical transmitters, so he can find out if their bodies have some inbuilt adaptation to the heat, or if they've just learnt to put up with it.
Steady on now, Mukkul. We've walked just short of 8 kilometres this morning. The temperature now is 41 degrees and it's 10 past 11 in the morning. But the good news is, on the horizon, there are all sorts of extraordinary shapes which can only be camels. So I think we're in striking distance of the mines.
We are speechless as we arrive. It's as though we have walked through a window in time. This incredible scene has barely changed since the time of Julius Caesar. Every day, hundreds of men and boys hack blocks of salt from the ground by hand, after they've walked the same exhausting route we've just taken in the baking heat.
You can see the scale of it because obviously this is where they're working, but look how far. That's probably hundreds, if not thousands of years they've been doing this. Oh my God, that is incredible.
I'm kind of overwhelmed, to be honest. It's like going back about 2,000 years. And it also makes you think you will never, ever, ever take for granted that little pot of salt on your table ever again. My goodness.
There are two jobs here, splitting and lifting the great salt slabs, then shaping them into precise 1 kilogram blocks. This turns one of Ethiopia's few natural resources into hard currency.
1 block of this salt is how much for the caravan people? Right.
Each block is worth 5 pence down here, but they're worth 10 times as much in the markets in the highlands. And the miner gets just £2 for a 12-hour shift of back-breaking work in the hottest place on Earth.
I thought mining down the bottom of a hole would be hard, but this looks incredibly hard.
Okay, come on.
Which takes us to Mukul's experiment.
Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready, yeah.
With our temperature transmitters working inside us, Steve and I try our hand at mining the Afar way.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, bounce.
Okay.
2, 3, bounce. 1, 2, 3, bounce.
Hang on, Steve. Wait. I need to get more purchase here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hey! I can feel my heart rate's gone up. Something wrong.
Meanwhile, Mukul is persuading the locals to swallow one of his capsules.
One of the miners has very kindly agreed to swallow one of the core capsules for us, and it'd be very interesting to see whether a miner reaches the same temperatures that Kate and Steve will reach while they're working in these mines.
I'm not sure what our core temperatures are, but after a few minutes, Steve and I are really struggling in the heat.
I'm sweating!
While Gary, who swallowed the other capsule, seems totally unaffected.
You have to do more.
You have to do faster.
To be good.
So what's Mukul's meter reading?
You look hot.
Actually, you have gone red. I did, certainly. I felt like I had.
What the readings show is Gary, who's been working here all day, hasn't really got very much above 37 degrees. And you guys, who've only really done 15 minutes worth, have risen a whole degree to 38 degrees.
Wow.
1 degree doesn't sound much, but just 2 degrees higher would put both of us at serious risk of heat stroke.
It doesn't stop. That's the most amazing thing. You know, I can do it for short bursts, but nothing like this. It just goes on and on.
What's clear is that in this heat, Gary's body actually functions differently from ours.
So Gary basically is has adapted or is genetically able to deal with this? What do you think?
That's the question we haven't yet answered in this trip. What we've undoubtedly answered from the Afar and Gare, who's a Highland Ethiopian, is that they manage heat completely differently. They're much more efficient.
At the moment, we can't say why the Afar are better suited to the heat than us. But Mukul hopes to repeat the experiment in a few weeks' time to see if, after living here a while, our bodies show any signs that they've adapted. But however well adapted we humans get, we'll never match these guys. The Afar's camels are already the perfect desert machine.
Evolution is a very, very powerful thing. There isn't a scrap of design in this camel that isn't actually enabling it to cope with this environment. They don't waste anything. They can hang on to their water. They can push out very, very concentrated urine. Mine gets sort of fairly dark and this sort of thing, but I have to produce a certain level of urine. They produce a really, really concentrated urine, therefore saving that water to keep them going, to keep their blood pumping around their veins. Oh, I've got some fresh camel urine here for you. As you can see, it is very, very dark. It's very, very yellow, which tends to mean it's concentrated. Okay, the other way of telling that is that if you dip your finger in it and then lick it, it's very, very salty. Kate, do you want to come and try this?
What, lick your camel urine?
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I'd love to. I can't think of anything I'd like to do more.
So basically, just dip a finger in and just put it on the tip of your tongue. And
You're serious, aren't
No,
you?
yeah, serious, yeah. So just dip.
Whose is it?
Yep. It's this guy's over here. He's fine.
Oh, I just want to know whose it is. You know, I'm not just tasting any old urine.
Now, does it taste salty?
Taste of urine.
Yeah. Well, what you didn't realise...
Nice.
What you didn't realise, I dipped this finger and then licked this one.
Very funny. Anyway,
but yeah.
Thanks.
You can't tell anything from tasting it.
While I wash my mouth out, Dougal and the rest of the team are setting off to find one of the clues to why this is the hottest place on Earth. Apparently, it's all to do with why these salt pans came to be here in the first place. We're driving across one of the lowest places on planet Earth, 120 meters below sea level. So low, in fact, that when sea levels were higher tens of thousands of years ago, this was all ocean. And some of the salt we see today results from evaporation when those oceans dried up. But the main reason is what lies beneath us, a huge volcanic engine drawing salty groundwater from the nearby Red Sea and pushing it through the surface layer. And the most incredible thing is that Dougal finds the volcanic engine is still running.
Believe it or not, this shallow mound behind me is the world's lowest subaerial volcano. And it's very few geologists get the opportunity to see this in the flesh. So I'm really excited. First evidence we're going to see of the dramatic situation happening beneath our feet.
As Dougal's team reach the edge of the crater, it's clear this is no ordinary volcano. Like the surface of an alien planet, Dalol is crowded with ridges and towers of crystals, and pockmarked with hissing gas vents and pools of concentrated acid. Our scientists will need to treat this place with respect.
Very, very quick safety briefing is pretty important about where we're going. You've got to follow the Afar guide. Sifa here comes here quite regularly. He was up a couple of, I don't know, say a year or so ago. He stepped on what he thought was a fairly solid surface, went straight through, and this was the effect.
So, when Dougal sets off to explore the volcano system, he takes Trip Dr. Mukul with him.
What kind of acids would you have up here?
Well, primarily you're looking at sulfuric acid because you can see by the yellows, I mean, just behind us here, these lovely bright yellow and orange colours, there's lots of sulfur crystals in here.
And one of the major gases that you get off the volcanic rocks is SO2, sulfur dioxide. So clearly these sulfur springs are evidence that the hydrothermal system is still active. So at depth, there must be hot boiling magma, which is driving this salt engine factory. Yeah.
Dougal's mission here is to find evidence of how active the fault system is beneath the Danakil salt flats. So he's testing the acidity of the pools with a pH meter.
Let's see if we can get a reading from it.
The more acidic they are, the higher the influence of the magma below.
You know, it's off the scale, absolutely off the scale. It won't read the pH because the pH is so extreme.
A few years ago, these acid pools were tested and had a pH of 2. Now they've hit 0, about as acidic as it's possible to get. It means that the magma is highly active and could erupt again soon. For Dougal, it's more evidence that this whole part of Africa is getting more volcanic as the Earth's crust splits apart.
The Earth's crust here is really, really thin. And it's really, really thin because beneath my feet we're at the boundary between 3 major structures in the Earth's crust. And these structures are literally tearing themselves apart. And when it tears itself apart, it gives it cracks and structures which molten magma can work its way through to the Earth's surface as volcanoes.
So as it sinks further into the volcanic underworld, the hottest place on Earth is only going to get hotter.
Well, this is it. We're leaving Danakil. As you can see, all the vehicles are being packed up, and suddenly we're not going to be on foot anymore. We're going to be in these trucks heading south to what is going to be our base camp now for the next few weeks.
Our destination is the village of Kusrawat. The journey should take 4 hours if nothing goes wrong. And that's a big if, because we're heading out across some of the most rugged, hostile terrain in this part of the world. And that's saying something.
We have a stop vehicle, all vehicles stop now, thank you. Come on, keep going, come on, push.
It's too hot to be doing this.
I'm beginning to see the wisdom of using camels in this terrain. Camels don't have alternators, wheels that get stuck.
They don't need power steering.
They don't need power steering or pulling out by a rope.
Well, this is becoming a bit of a chore now. We've been going for nearly, well, two and a half hours. We've made probably about, I'd say, 5 kilometres, maybe 6 kilometres. It's not going particularly well.
But it'll be worth it, because we'll finally get to meet the people who live out here permanently, the Afar communities of the Danakil Depression. I'm incredibly excited because this is why I'm here, to work with and learn from these unique people, to discover how they survive from day to day. By the time we get to the village, it's dark, and we have no idea what kind of place we'll be calling home for the next few weeks, or what kind of reception we're going to get.
Hello.
Hi. Will you say, from all of us, this is very special for us, and to say a huge thank you for allowing us to come and stay in on their land and with them.
We make congratulations to you, and we love you. Okay, we are glad to meet you. We are love you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So we needn't have worried. Not only do they love us, they've even laid on some traditional dancing. And though it's meant to be just for the men, I'm so glad to be here, there's nothing going to keep me off that dance floor.
I have to jump. Go like this. Hang on, see. Hang on. Oh my goodness, I've scored and I've only been here 10 minutes. Good. This is when you really feel like I'm in Ethiopia. I'm with. I'm gonna find out about these people. I feel like you really are being kind of welcomed into this big extended family, and it suddenly feels after the walk and everything that we have really arrived.
It's 5 a.m. and the start of our first day living with the Afar people in Kusawat.
This is really going to be our first time that we can kind of understand how the Afar live day to day in this incredibly harsh environment.
I'll be living with the women, while Steve and team biologist Richard will spend the day with the village chief.
Assalamu alaikum. Richard.
Richard Mugali.
I'm Steve.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, Richard. My name is Gilsa.
Gilsa.
The Afar are reputed to be one of the most ferocious tribes in the world, and the chiefs are commonly given a name that reflects their power. In English, Galissa translates as frightening.
You have a very interesting name. It means frightening, but he looks very friendly and hospitable and warm.
You don't know me very well, he says. He saw me this morning.
Okay.
Though we've come all this way to find out about the Afar, we find they're just as interested in learning about us.
I have to ask you a question. Why don't you have our color?
It's, where we come from, the sun is not very strong. The longer we stay in Ethiopia, the darker our skin will become. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know yet.
Galissa's first job of the day is to tend his camels. Providing milk, meat, transport and status, camels are the Afar's greatest single possession. So it's not surprising Galissa sings to his every morning before milking begins. Guests are traditionally welcomed with fresh camel's milk, so for Steve and Richard, this is a huge honour.
Okay. Gotta go. That's very nice. That's very nice.
And it's considered very rude not to finish it.
There you go. Get it down, you. That's, you know, so thank you very much for that. That's great.
Try more?
Camel's milk is a vital source of protein and fat in the Afar's otherwise fairly meagre diet.
What's really nice is we can see that it's obviously very important to him that his children, especially the male children, grow up big and strong. It just goes to show that, you know, these guys could not live here without these animals, you know. These animals are their lifeblood, really. Look at that lovely big white moustache.
This part of the Danakil Depression is just as hot as anywhere we've travelled through, with daytime temperatures regularly approaching 50 degrees centigrade. But it's also remarkably green here, and that's because there's water, if you know where to dig.
Gosh, it's a deep well, 15 feet deep.
Team medic Sue and I are spending the day with Galissa's wife and daughters, and our first job is to collect water. The Afar have always been a nomadic people, travelling in search of grazing for their animals. But for the last 30 years, the people of Kusawat have settled here because oases like this are few and far between, and the Afar know a good thing when they see it.
This is quite a luxury, really, because having a well so close to the village is obviously a bonus. However, you've still got to schlep down here, pull the water up, fill your containers, and schlep back again.
What feels like a luxury to the locals feels like damn hard work to me.
Yes, this seems to be the traditional way to carry water, which makes a lot of sense, actually, because, as you know, it's much heavier carrying something in your arm. Sorry, I've got to concentrate here. No, OK, which way? Oh, under my arm, yeah, OK. It's not the most comfortable of positions to be in. Like that? Good? Everyone happy? OK, back up the hill. Look at you, you make it look completely effortless.
The Afar Women's Day is a non-stop cycle of cooking and collecting water and firewood. But while I join the women in their daily labour, Steve and Richard are sitting down with Galissa for a cup of tea in the shade. There is a distinct imbalance in the workload here that I'm finding hard to ignore.
It is a hard life for these women, undeniably hard life. To me, a stranger, they seem very cheerful, but maybe over the next few days we'll discover that life for the Afar women isn't as cheerful as it appears on the surface.
If I can find a moment when the men aren't around, I may learn what the women think about their lives here. Day 2, and Dougal is heading off with his team to continue his geological exploration of the Afar region. On our journey here, he's picked up evidence of increasing volcanic activity, which could mean the Horn of Africa will eventually break away from the continent and lead to the birth of a new ocean. Just a few days' drive away, there's evidence that this is happening faster than anyone realized. 2 years ago, there was an earthquake which the locals say produced a vast crack in the surface of the Earth.
We're hoping to see something which is very visual from the ground up. We know that this particular fissure was involved in also a small volcanic eruption, so there should be good evidence of essentially the ground just breaking apart underneath our feet.
The fissure is so remote, it's only been mapped by satellite and no one has ventured inside. So this journey promises to be a scientific goldmine, if they're able to get the team and their equipment where no man has gone before. While we wait for news of Dougal's venture, Steve finds that the Afar rely for their survival on another staple animal just as important as the camel, that universal ruminant, the goat.
Goats are one of the most amazing species. They can live everywhere. They can live at the top of mountains, they can live out in the desert. And we're going to follow these guys now and we're going to see just how they use their behaviour to exist out here, because it's a completely different role than the camels.
Like camels, goats can provide milk and meat, and though they're no use for transport, they're a lot more placid and much easier to keep. So responsibility for looking after them is given to the children.
The little boy who seems to be in charge, that's Abdullah. He's probably about 6 or 7. Now, given how important these livestock are, and what a massive part of the wealth of this family is tied up in these animals, that's a huge responsibility.
The vegetation here, despite the water, is very sparse and toughened by the harsh desert conditions. To find out just how the goats find enough to flourish, Steve has decided to conduct a simple experiment.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to be a bit on the sly side. So. Steady, there we go. You're going to be our test goat, okay? I'm going to pop a little GPS tracker on him, or her, okay? And then pop it round its neck. Good man, you hang on to goat. Abdullah. What is the goat's name?
Afazi.
Afazi.
Red mouth.
Redmouth. Right, let's follow Redmouth then, Afasi, and see where he goes.
Steve is hoping to collect samples of everything Afasi eats in a day.
Afasi, where have you gone? Just a mouthful here and a mouthful there. That's what it's all about, being a goat. There's the fruit, leaves, dried leaves. There's other sort of woody, sort of herby-looking plant. It all aids the digestive process.
When Steve downloads the GPS data, he'll be able to see just how far the goats have to go to get a square meal.
You're doing a good job. You doing a good job?
Meh.
Meh. Yeah, good. Good lad. Come on, then.
Come on.
Yeah, come on.
Come on.
That's it. You tell them what to do.
Come on.
Hiya. Hiya. Who teaches you to dance? It's very cool.
That same evening, he gets the results of the goat test.
I'm just downloading the data for that now. It's quite interesting, actually. What we've got on the x-axis is time, moving along here, and then this y-axis here is her speed. Now, 0 is about here, so when she's sort of at this point along this line here, she's actually stood still. I mean, you can just see it keeps moving, stopping, moving, stopping, moving, stopping.
In just an hour, Afasi stopped 30 times, and over the course of the day, the little goat walked a staggering 12 kilometres as she sought out enough food to survive.
What this really highlights is that this ability of the goat to seek out the good food. It's not just basically wandering up to one bush and just munching away on that until everything's gone. Quite often we would see the goats today, they'd go up, they'd sniff at something and they wouldn't eat it at all. And you think, you know, that can't be a good survival trait if it's turning its nose up at what looks to us as good food. But obviously it can detect that, you know, it's not quite as good as the next bush, which means that they get the absolute best out of what's available.
This is why the Afar relies so much on their goat herds. The goat's ability to turn sparse bush into walking protein is largely what keeps the people here alive. The next day, on the dusty road to the earthquake fissure, Dougal's venture hits a snag. Not content with just going to the site of the earthquake, Dougal's brought along over 100 kilos of state-of-the-art equipment to map the earthquake fissure in 3D. But this is as far as the cars can go, and there aren't enough camels to take all the kit.
As you can see, it's still a pretty horrendous, dusty place. We've only got half the camels we asked for. The other half are somewhere over in the dust over there. So I guess we're going to load most of the heavy gear here, and hopefully the other camels will come and pick up the rest of the gear. We've only got basically a day and a half up there to make sure the whole system works. So we'll push on ahead, and hopefully we can catch up a little bit of time, and hopefully the sun will be a bit kind to us today. Fat chance.
They have no choice but to load as much of the kit onto the camels as they can and set off walking across the lava fields. What should be a half-day's trek as a camel train turns into a day-long hike with no guarantee they'll have enough gear at the other end to do the 3D scan.
Yeah.
6 a.m. the next day, and they're still a kilometre from the earthquake fissure. Some camels have arrived, but the rest could be anywhere.
We've got basically one day of sunlight left. We've got the fissure to do, and that's it. We can't fail. This is it. Today is one day and one day only.
But now there's another obstacle. The last kilometre between them and their goal is studded with volcanic vents spewing deadly sulphur dioxide gas. Like a chemical minefield which they have no way of avoiding. So, carrying gas safety monitors, Dougal and the team set off on the final leg of their journey.
Walking in with your detector, I feel almost like a canary heading into a coal mine. Hopefully I won't be a dead canary.
What Dougal doesn't know is that the rest of his vital mapping kit has finally left base camp and is on its way. Though there's no guarantee it will arrive in time to use it before it gets dark. However, after a highly stressful and demanding 3-day journey, Dougal is about to get his first sight of the Dabahu earthquake fissure.
Well, we've still got some fairly low readings, which is good, but we've got to be close. I mean,
just keep monitoring it.
Whoa! You are kidding me.
Dougal.
Absolutely awesome. I was expecting a small crack in the ground. Oh my lord, this is fantastic. It's up there in the Hall of Geological Fame, I think. My lord.
Before the eruption, locals recall how the ground swelled until it finally burst open in a massive explosion, throwing thousands of tons of ash and rock across a vast area, swallowing their camels and goats. This vast crack in the earth is all that was left behind.
To think this has happened, excuse me, I'm out of breath actually with excitement at this stage. To think this happened overnight, this is the stuff of Hollywood. When you're a kid and you see those movies of streets breaking apart, this would have just opened up and ejected a whole heap of magma. This is just phenomenal. I really hope we can get some really good stuff out of this, because having got here now, I wish we could stay 3-4 days, maybe even a week. This is just geologic heaven. Oh, this is fantastic.
There are only a few hours of daylight left for Dougal to make his scan, but at least all the kit has now finally arrived.
This unit here fires millions and millions of laser points in a 360 direction to build up a complete 3D picture of the landscape around it. The final thing we need to do is to fit a camera to the top, and what we'll do is we'll take high-resolution digital photographs, and the computer software will then be able to merge the picture with the scan, and that's when things get really exciting.
The reason the 3D scan is so important is that it creates a snapshot of the exact state of the fissure at the moment. Because if, as Dougal suspects, the Earth's crust is breaking apart here, measuring it now will help geologists understand how fast that process is moving. So to work out if the fissure is getting deeper, wider or longer, a 3D model is needed, and that's what Dougal hopes to make. The only problem is he'll have to get himself and his laser scanner 60 meters down there before it gets dark. And there are no stairs.
We're going to put a line, and it's like a cable car, if you like, going across a cable. And that cable we'll control from here. Okay, so we'll release the tension, and that cable will slacken. And so the person that's gone to the middle will get lowered down in the middle of the V, if you like.
Whilst getting inside is a big safety concern, the deadly gases that lurk below are an even bigger worry. As well as sulfur dioxide, there's the threat of carbon monoxide and hydrogen sulfide, all of which will kill. Dougal has completed the scan of the rim of the fissure and is ready to get down inside for the final part of the picture. But before Dougal is allowed in, expert rigger Mark Diggins must first test the rig and the gas levels.
Give me slack on the right. Okay, faster. That's good.
Mark is going where no man has gone before.
Okay, on the right. Take it up as you're in the wind.
As well as the risk of gas, there's the constant threat of another earth tremor. And that's before he gets to the bottom, wherever that turns out to be.
Okay, stop slacking on off the cable, over. Go in, go in.
With just 2 hours of sunlight left to get Dougal and his scanning equipment down, they can't afford the slightest hitch.
Stop there, guys. Stop, stop, stop.
That doesn't sound good. I mean, one of his meters are going off.
Mark, is that one of your gas meters alarm? Yes, it is. It is.
The alarm means there's deadly gas, but no one knows which one.
I mean, there's a lot that could be going wrong down there. Wait, I gotta focus 1 sec.
Yeah, many more people on the cable. Look at the smoke over.
So that was the H2S alarm going off. So this is hydrogen sulfide, which is probably the one that's the most dangerous and the one that we didn't really want to be seeing on this.
Hydrogen sulfide can kill with just one breath. If Mark's breathing apparatus had failed or his face mask slipped, the fissure would have claimed its first human victim.
Pretty much they say the last thing you'll ever smell is the smell of rotten eggs, which is H2S, and it's enough to kill you.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to create a unique scientific record. But at what risk?
You'll only get one crack at it, and if that BA equipment packs up whilst you're on a rope, you're not going to be getting out of it.
We've taken the right precautions and made the right measurements to ascertain that it's not a particularly nice place down there. And so I don't think we should pursue going in there any further.
This is a massive disappointment for Dougal. His only hope now is that he can salvage something from the scans around the edge of the fissure.
Hey, come and have a look at this. We've just got the first scans up. I mean, it's raw data at the moment, but so, I mean, if this scan's worked, hopefully the other two have worked, and we'll basically be able to stitch all three together.
I was worried for a few minutes there that we wouldn't get anything
today. It was such a rush.
Today,
it was such a rush. I mean,
I'm happy for you guys. This is good.
Results, Steve.
Oh, good.
Despite having to abandon the final descent, the scans from the edge have produced an almost complete 3D snapshot of the earthquake fissure, the first ever. Armed with this first baseline model, the rate the Horn of Africa is separating from the continent can now be plotted. But Dougal is not content with just one geological first. He has an even bigger target in his sights, a vast lava lake called Erta Ale, which Dougal believes will prove how incredibly thin the Earth's crust here has already become.
I feel a celebration.
Yeah,
me too. Let's go and have a drink to Erta Ale and the future of the expedition.
But if mapping a hole in the ground was tough, doing the same inside a live volcano is likely to push the team to breaking point. Next time on Hottest Place on Earth, while Steve tries to learn the local version of rugby,
I didn't realise they'd got knives on their belt.
my concern over the way the women are being treated comes to a head.
There's men everywhere just listening in. Don't you dare give away our secrets.
Mukul has to deal with a major medical emergency.
He's got a very loud heart, ma'am.
Oh my God.
I've held dying children, and it's a terrible, terrible thing.
And we have to make some tough decisions about how far we go in helping the Afar people.
Basically take the child and the mother by force, but this really is a matter of life and death.
And Dougal takes his team on a voyage into the unknown.
Oh, listen, this is huge.
A daring assault on the oldest active volcano in the world.
Smoke me a kipper, I'll be back for breakfast.
All of us understood why the Afar think that this is the gateway to hell.